Okay, is still some students are not came from the seminar, or seminar is over? Okay, thank you for information. Okay, so let's talk more about the features of Web API. Right. One of the feature of Web API is that it is extensible. The architecture supports various extensibility point wherein you can write your custom code and you can extend the functionality of the existing Web API architecture. So one of the extensibility point in Web API is filters, action filter. I think you are familiar with action filter in MVC, .NET MVC. Okay, so Web API also supports the action filters. That means you can write down the code which can be executed before the action methods get executed, and even after once the method is executed. So you can pre-process the data, you can handle, or you can write down some code to perform some action just before the action method gets executed or after the action method is over. This is something like triggers, okay, before trigger and after trigger in databases. Similarly, this action filters works similar way. What you need to do, you need to write down the code that will be executed just before the action method and after the action method. So you can specify that, and even you can specify per action method, or you can specify that your code should be executed before the end any action method of the controller gets executed, or even you can extend it for the entire or all the controllers. So you can make it global. The code can be made global so that it can be executed before any action method executed, or even you can make it applicable for only set of action method available for one controller, or you can specifically decide that it should be executed just before and after the particular action methods get executed. So there are three types. Let me share my slide. So first one is global. Second one is any action method of a controller, a given controller class. The third one is uh, specific to any action method. Right? So you can write down this, and they are called action filters because they act as a filter. Right? Now we'll see that which classes we need to extend to write our custom action filter. And there are many applications you can use for authentication, authorization, or you can use action filter for some other purpose like data pre-processing, or you can use action filter for like a logging purpose, or some as a helper utility, right? So these are the different application of use of action filter. So let me write it down. few applications like authentication, authorization, you can use for pre-processing the data, or you can use for some other purpose like logging purpose. These are the few of the applications of action filters, right? So in the existing application, what you can do, you can add your own class, right? We call it as a log attribute. So right now we'll write down action filter which will log the data. Every time a request comes, it will log the current date and time. So it's a simple filter which will log the current date and time every time a request comes. So this is usually required for statistics purpose. This logging data can be used for several for different purpose. That it can be used to uh, see the number of client requests. That means popularity of the website or your API. Then it can be also used to see the load of the system at different times in a day. Okay, at say at night there is a very low load, or at a particular point in time, say at noon, it is heavy loaded. Likewise, we can gather the different statistics based on the log data, and uh, we can scale our system accordingly. That means we can do the provisioning of more number of threads, or we can create the we can have more number of pre-thread, or we can have controllers available to handle the more request at particular time in a day, right? So there are different reasons for logging the data. So for creating our custom filter, there are two ways. One in which you just derive your class from the action filter attribute class. So this is the class which is responsible for action filter attribute is responsible for creating our custom action filter. And why they are called the class name is action filter attribute. That means it is derived from attribute as well as it is also a action filter, right? So it is both attribute as well as action filter. And this is our own class. We call it as a log attribute. That means we can use this our own class as an attribute to action method, to class, or even globally, we'll see that how to do that. And there are two methods that we need to override. One is on action executing, and another is on action executed. So these are the two methods that we need to override. Right now, we are simply logging the current date and time. Okay, current date and time. And secondly, we are also logging that which method is get executed. So this HTTP action context object you can use. Okay, HTTP action context you can use, and it has many property regarding which controller was invoked and which of the action method of the given controller was executed. Even its name and other parameters you can get it via this HTTP action context object. So right now we are basically only the name we are logging. So we want to know which action method was executed. Again, it would be useful that in your controller class or in your application, there are many controllers, and each controller will contain number of action methods. So this statistics would be helpful that which methods are executed more number of times in comparison to other action method, and you can focus on that particular method. You can try to optimize that, or you can try to scale it up, write the code so that on a heavy load it can handle the more number of requests and so forth. So these statistics are useful in real life application. Right now we are not concerned about it, but with real life application, these are the major concern, because the code is normally you can write down easily, but to make the application scalable, these are the more knowledge is required, and you need to go into the more depth, right? Right now, these are the simple things you are implementing, but later on you need to focus more. You need to focus on the optimization of the code and how to make it scalable. So those are the major issues in the real life applications, right? Okay, so before the action method is get executed, then we will just log this date and time and the name of the action method. Secondly, once the action method is executed, this method will be the code of this method will be executed. Once again, we log the action method name and the current date and time. So every time one request we are getting a request and action method get executed, we will get to log into the console, right? So this is a very simple implementation of our own filter. So simply derive your class from the action filter attribute class, so which is the built-in class, which is available again. So here I have just highlighted that it is available in this namespace. In MVC, the namespace is different, and for the action filter for the web API, the namespace is system.web.http.filters. So remember that the same filter available for MVC will not work here, right? Namespace are different. So any doubt in this particular filter, our custom filter? And now onwards, we'll call it as an action filter, because this filter will be executed just before the action method gets executed and after the action method is over. Any doubt so far? I think this code is straightforward. Simply override these two methods, and you can get the whole control over this HTTP action context class, and then you can do more than simply logging the thing. You can have total control over the action method, its name, its parameter, everything, and then you can do whatever you want to do as per the requirement. But for testing purpose, right now we are using the log attribute. So simply this log file, right now these are stored into the logged into the debug window, but you can store it into the file instead of logging into the debug window. And this is our product controller class, and remember it is derived from API controller. And now we annotate it with the log attribute. So see that though our class name is log attribute, we are not writing the suffix attribute while annotating. So this is true for any attribute. So we'll see that here the name is a log attribute, but while we annotate the action or class name, a method or class name with this attribute, we do not write the suffix attribute. So we annotate the entire controller class. Okay, we annotate the entire controller class. That means now any method of this product controller will be executed, our action filter will be executed. Is it clear? So there are three, suppose there are three methods. So any get methods will be executed. Always our action filter will be executed because we applied it to the product controller class. But if there are multiple controllers, then we need to apply selectively, right? And if you want to make it global, we have to add it into the global filter collection. So in case if you want to apply our log attribute to all the controllers in your web API config, there is a static method called register. There is a filter collection. Okay, within this HTTP configuration, there is a filter collection. Within that, you add your own object of log attribute. Okay, so that will be added. So what will happen every time a request comes, your attribute, this particular action filter will be executed. And it is even possible that you can define multiple action filter, right? So here you can annotate controller class or action method with multiple attributes. So it is not necessary that only single action filter can be written, but you can write down multiple action filters. So see that right now we are retrieving all the product list, and you will see that 3 products are written. So we hope that our action filter gets executed. Now another request is I am searching for the product with the ID 2. Okay, here ID 2. So then also we get the product with the ID 2. And this also get request. There is also third get request wherein we want to search the product with the ID 3. Okay, and we get the product with the ID 3. Right? So we are getting this product record. And now we go to the trace window. We'll see that there are in the console. You will see that get product is executed and the date on which it was executed. So that has been logged. Similarly, get product with ID was executed. It was executed twice. That's why we get 4 entries because before and after. I think any doubt? I think someone raised hand or what happened? I don't know. Maybe the font size is small, may not be readable, but I will provide you this slide so that you can easily read, and even you can implement it easily. Simply need to create this your own custom class, which is derived from the action filter attribute, and override these 2 methods. And it is not necessary both the methods should be overridden. You can override either of this method or both. So this is about creating custom action filter, and you can apply it individually to the entire controller class, or you can apply it individually to specific action method, or you can add it globally by adding it to the global filter list. Okay, so here this is you have to do. Okay, this is a collection, filter collection, and you add your own instance of your action filter. So you can try this code, and then you can verify that your action filter will be executed every time a request comes. So within the debug window, we see that we are having the date and the action method which was executed, right? And before and after. That's why 2 entry for every action method execution. Now we'll see the another way to write our action filter. So now we are creating a new class called log2 attribute, and now we have to individually derive it from the attribute class as well as implement this iAction filter interface. So there are 2 ways. One is in which we derive from the action filter attribute. Now this is the second way. But here, when we are implementing this iAction filter, we need to override this execute action filter async. This is a method that we need to override, which has 3 parameters: HTTP action context, cancellation token. So see that it is an asynchronous operation, and it returns the task of type HTTP response message. So see that always our input is in HTTP request message, and output is HTTP response message. So these are the 2 types for storing your HTTP request and HTTP response. So ultimately, you need to convert your input. Your input will be in this format, and your output will be in this format. So the web, it is the responsibility of the web API framework to give the data, okay, give the input in this particular message format, and you should send the data to the HTTP response message. So see that the output is HTTP response message. It's an asynchronous task. And once again, what we do, and again, here you can see that this is the continuation. This is used for whether to stop the task or not. So if you remember for the thread, normally you can, main thread can wait for other thread to finish. So there are several operations to wait for the thread. You can cancel the thread. So if you want to cancel the thread, you can use cancellation token. If you want to wait for the thread, you can use the continuation. But right now we are not going to do that. Simply log the date and log the method name. And you can use the continuation because now we want to continue the thread. We don't want to stop the thread. Okay, so this continuation and wait for it to finish. Okay, wait for that to retrieve the. So basically, in turn, it will internally execute the action method. So when we are calling continuation, it will be delegating the job to the action method. When the action method is executed, it will get the response into the result. Once the action method is finished, we will get the response into the result method. Once again, we log the action name and the date and time, and finally return the result. Because now this is the result written by the actual action method, and it should be of type HTTP response message. Okay, so this should be of type HTTP response message. Okay, so what if I do not call this continuation? What will happen? If I do not write this 2 line of code, what will happen? What should be the output if we skip these 2 lines? So basically, what will happen? You're correct. Your action method will not be executed. Your action method will not be executed, but then you should create your own response message of type this HTTP response message. Okay, so basically you have to create your own HTTP response message in that case if you are not invoking these 2 lines, right? Okay. Now we can apply this our action filter log2 to the entire product controller class. That means any action method of the controller will result into the execution of the action filter log2. Once again, we retrieve all the entire product list and we get the 3 product. If you want to search for the product with the ID 3, we get the product with the ID 3. Once again, we retrieve all the products. Okay, so 3 times we have issued the request, and we want to see that we should get product first. It was executed, then get product with ID, and finally get products. And the date on which it was executed, and twice because before and after it is executed. So remember, this flow is important. How we are invoking. So before continuation, before calling the continuation, we are logging the date and the action method name. And after the action method is executed, once again we log the date and action name. So this is something like pre-processing, post-processing. Normally for logging, you need to log it once only, not twice. But in fact, even you can pre-process the data that is available as part of the action method parameter. we are going to write a simple action filter which will process the data, okay, pre-process the data. So I call my class as uppercase attribute, and once again it is derived from the action filter attribute. And now I am overriding only on action executing, not the on action executed. So before the method get executed, this method will be called. So once again, we can get the parameter by this object of the HTTP action context. So what are the action argument? Try find out the value whether there is a name parameter exist or not. If the name parameter exists, then get its value. Okay, get its value, and we want to convert it into the uppercase. So basically, what we are expecting that product name. Okay, product name, we are expecting product name to be converted to the uppercase. The user can enter the product name in any case, but ultimately we are converting the entire product name string into the uppercase. And now we are storing back into the action arguments. So it will convert all entire product name into the uppercase. It's a simple pre-processing the data. But you can do validation, you can pre-process the data, you can convert the types integer to string or string to numeric and so forth, and validation can be done here by writing your own code. So see that this class is very much important. It will have control over the entire your HTTP request object. Okay? You get the control over the HTTP request message. This class is responsible, or inside Web API, you have the access to this object HTTP request message. So you can get the header, you can get the content, you can get the control over the query string parameter and so forth. And now, instead of previously what we did in hard coded, we manually wrote this code, convert to uppercase. Okay, now we don't want this. Okay, simply we can replace with the name. We can expect that the product name will be converted to the uppercase. All. So here the product name is converted to the uppercase. And now apply to specific action method, get product with the name. So we don't want to apply this uppercase attribute to any other method, but only to this get product with name. So this is a simple testing of our action filter. Now we can pass the product name as entirely in lowercase, and still we get the correct product, or we can pass the mix mode, mix case, and still the correct product will be found. So this was easy. Now we'll move on to the model validation. In MVC also there is a provision of model validation. So we'll quickly review that. I hope that you know the model validation in MVC. Okay, so we'll quickly recap the thing so that it will be a revision for you, and we'll see the differences, maybe how it is handled in Web API project. So normally we see that suppose there is a product object coming from the client, you have to make sure that it is not null. If it is null, then it will create a problem. So and then we create a new product. Suppose I have the add product, which will get the product and it will add it to the product list. Right now we are not dealing it with the database, but we are dealing with the static list, product list, and we initialize the ID, name, and price, and add it to the product list. So this is my static product list. Okay. Okay, for this code, is it necessary to create a new product instance? Can't I directly insert it into my product list over here? Is it necessary? This statement is it necessary? This statement? or I can optimize this code so that directly just check that product is not null and then simply insert this product into our list. What do you think? Okay, Priyank is saying possible. Any other answer? Okay, Sahil is also saying possible. Just I wanted your opinion. In case if you see this code, you might tempted to rewrite this code. Normally we call it as a refactoring, but just I want to see that whether should we write this code in this fashion or this is fine. Any other suggestion, opinion, other students? Okay, if we do this, that is incorrect. If we do this, that would be incorrect. Now, can anyone say why it would be incorrect to do so? We should not do this. We must create, okay? We must create the new product object and then we should insert like this. Initialize the product object and then insert into the list. That is the correct way. This is not the correct way. You should not directly edit. Anyone wants to answer this question? Why? For that, you will require some fundamental knowledge. Okay, some theory you will require. Okay, the reason is very simple. Let me get rid of this. Okay, the reason is where this is stored in the memory product object. This product object is stored in memory. Where it is stored? So this is the method parameter where they are stored, or the method or function parameter where they are stored. Correct. The answer is stack. They are stored in stack. So what if we directly store this into the list? And this is static list. Okay, this is static list. If we add this product into the static list, what will happen? Once this action method is over, the stack entry will be popped up. Okay, the stack entry will be removed, and when the stack entry will be removed, this object will be lost. It is not pointing to a valid. That means this entry is not pointing to a valid content, because it can be overwritten by adding a new. Okay, the technical word is, if you know the technical word, we call it as an activation frame. I don't know whether it has been covered in or some other subject or not. Activation frame. Okay, so should I draw this? I think let me draw this. What will happen? Slightly, I will give you a quick overview. So this is your stack. This product is somewhere over here. So these are some entries. Suppose product is here. Now, once this method is over, this entry will be removed, and another method is executed. Once again, something else will be stored over here, and that's why this pointer is no more pointing to a valid object. So that's why you should not do this. Is it clear? Okay, so you are intelligent, you can easily understand this, but still, let us see that if you don't know, then you can explain it further. Anyway, let's continue. This is the code. What we are doing, we are adding the product. Right? Okay. And let us retrieving. Then suppose I want to add the product. So we are using the post method, and within the request body, we are specifying product name and price, but ID is missing. Okay, product ID is missing. And we say my content type is application/JSON. That means this is the data is in JSON format. Okay, this my data is in JSON format. Okay, because I have specified the content type application/JSON. So what do you think? Should it result into the error? It should throw an exception. Because in our product, we are expecting the product object, and if you remember, the complex type is expected from the request body. Primitive type is expected as the query string parameter. Now let us see the output. 204, no content. So there is no error. There is no error. The reason is it will automatically set the value to 0. Okay, it will set the value to 0. This product ID object is initialized to 0. The product ID is set to 0. So this is not going to work. So you will see that specifically the record created has product ID 0 because it was missing in our data. So then we go for the model validation. So there are, you use this namespace component model dot data annotation, and there are different attributes like required, range. That means this product ID is required, and this product price must be in the range 0 to 10,000. Now, should we try it again? Because now previously we did not use the model validation. Now we want to validate the data before updating. Okay, right now we are updating into the static product list, but later on we can simply store it into the database. And these are some additional model validate constants can be specified, string length, then range, even regular expression can be specified to the properties of the our model class, right? The regular expression like email validation directly. So no need to write the code. So that will make the life of the programmer easier, right? No need to write the code that check for the string length, check for the range of values. Simply use the regex or some built-in constraints. And now you use this model state is valid. Okay, so if the product data is as per the constraint specified as part of the model, then it should add the product into the list and create a new HTTP response message with the status code OK. Otherwise, create the error response. The status code is bad request. That means something wrong with the data and the model state object. So this object will contain the property, what was the reason. So it will basically, the object will be sent as part of the response. So these are the changes, and now once again we issue the post request to this product, and content type is application/JSON. Once again, we are not providing the ID, only the name and price. Name and price. And click on the send button. Still we are getting OK. That means the product is still added. Now, even if you specified required, still the product is added. So what's going wrong? You can see that still the product with the ID 0 is inserted with the name and price. Now, what is the problem? The problem is with the JSON formatter. Okay, this is the default class available to handle with the JSON data. If the data is missing, some of the property is missing, then it will initialize the default value with the 0. It will initialize with some default value. So product ID was missing, so it will initialize with the value 0. So that now what we have to do? So still there is a nullable type. I hope that all of you know the nullable type. You simply have the question mark after the data type. That means it is now nullable. So what is now? It is required as well as nullable. It is required as well as nullable. That means if the data is missing, it would be null, and because it is required, it will not initialize it to 0. So these are some of the things that you need to take care. Previously, what happened? It was not nullable. So if the product ID is missing, it will initialize it with the 0. But now it is nullable is allowed, so it would be null. The product name is whatever we have specified, product price whatever we have specified, but ID would be null. And null is here, the property is required. Okay, so that's why it will throw an error. Okay, so model state will not be valid. The idea is that once again, the product ID is missing, we issue the post request, click on the send button, and finally we get the bad request as the response. So this is you need to take care while model validation. So specific example that I have covered, because even if you specified the attribute required, still your data would be there. Even if it is missing, it will be initialized with 0. So these are some of the possible cause of bug in your code, because you don't know that every time you will see that required is there, then it should throw an exception in case of missing product ID, but it is not working as expected. Yeah, and the response message, this is my model state. Model state has this, it has the value that array, the product ID field is required. Okay, so this is a specific message that we get on the client side. Just for testing purpose, we are sending the model state. During the development time, we are interested in the error message in case if error occurs. And now we enter the product, post it, click on send button, and don't forget to specify content type application /JSON. If you don't specify this, then this will not work. It will throw an exception. Remember that. And now we are getting okay. And if we retrieve the product, our new product with the ID 4, name printer, and price 6,000 is added to the static list. Okay, I hope that everything we have studied regarding the action filter and model validation, you understood these two things. And specifically, we have covered about the exception that should occur, but it is not occurring due to the how this default classes handle the model property. They initialize them with the default value, and then you are not getting an error. Okay, fine. So we'll stop here, and I will set this slide into the Google Classroom, so you can also test it on your system. And for further, you refer to the web API documentation available online. You can refer that. Even it is downloadable. So in case if you want to download this documentation, all the documentation available on the Microsoft website are downloadable. So you can download it as a PDF file. So as an offline, you can work it offline. You can refer to the documentation offline also. So you can go to the official documentation and you can download the entire documentation related with the web API. So there you will find out more details and theories and the related classes, because the framework is large and complex and it contains so many helper classes and so many built-in classes. but we are going step by step. Okay, we are just dealing with byte by byte, right? We are not dealing it with entirety, and gradually we are learning it, right? Okay, fine. Thank you, everyone.